Hello everyone, I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Sarah.
And it's time for another new movie review. Today we're going to talk about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the new movie from Jonathan Liebesman, produced of course by Michael Bay. Everybody talking about Michael Bay Ninja Turtles. Oh man, what's this going to be like? Is it going to be Transformers again? Or is it actually going to be coherent? Is it going to have a story? Or are we going to care about the characters? What kind of movie is this thing going to be? And we've just seen it. We just got finished with it, and we're going to tell you about all of that and more. So the new Ninja Turtles movie is another origin story for the Turtles, starting right back over from scratch. Not going to do a lot in the way of synopsis. It's the Turtles against Shredder. It's a new origin. It's a little bit different. It's an origin that is not wholesale different from what you're used to. And weirdly, I will say that hopefully this doesn't give too much away, but if you've been reading the IDW comics, there's a little bit from that. And it's either there's stuff borrowed from that, or they did it at the same time. It came up with it, but I really kind of doubt that, because I think by the time the final script was in, the IDW comics had really gotten underway. Why don't we go ahead and just jump straight into it, Sarah?
Okay.
How did you feel about the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
Well, I felt like they should have amputated the second half and Frankensteined on a different villain plot that would be more on par with the way the film began.
Yeah, well, that's a very telling board.
Yeah, well, I can't lie, I was all set to hate this movie. From the first moment I heard that there was a new Turtles movie out, I'm very particular about my Ninja Turtles. And
this is, by the way, part of the reason that I really wanted Sarah to see it and review it with me, because she's a big Ninja Turtles fan.
I love Ninja Turtles, but certain, rendition, I don't like them just across the board. If it's Ninja Turtles, I'll go see it. I like the old stuff, And
you're a bigger fan of 90 than anything, right?
Yes, I love the 90 film, and I love the cartoon show. So, I was all set to dislike this one, because I figured they wouldn't put my turtles on screen, so what's the point? The first, 25, 30 minutes of this film, I was ready to admit that I was wrong. Because I was engaged, they were bringing me into the characters. I actually liked their April O'Neil, which I didn't expect.
Which is astounding, because especially of who it was. I mean, I think you and I were with everybody else. Really, that's your really? Yeah, that's your casting for Megan Fox? Okay.
I liked how they introduced her to the Turtles. I liked the backstory they gave to the Turtles, and their connection to I just liked it. They were drawing me in. I was saying to myself, wow, they could go places with this. They could really do something. And then there was a scene where the action started to happen, and enter the villains. And it was just all downhill from there. And that...
What was downhill about it? Like, what didn't work? Just in general.
In general? Okay. The villain plot is not very complex, but it also doesn't entirely make sense. It seems like there are some real gaps in logic that they either didn't explain well enough or just left out entirely and didn't think through. And I'm not sure which on a first viewing.
Yeah.
But it seems like something was missing. And some of the characters that were endearing at the beginning, the thing that made them endearing, they kept doing ad nauseum, to where by the end of it, I didn't like that quality about them. For example, the guy who...
Vern?
Well, yeah, April's cameraman.
Well, I mean, he's cartoon show. They brought him
I
in
love
from
that they used him, and I actually liked him better than the cartoon version.
Well, if we had just used that guy, that would have been really... Could you imagine that nasally voice the entire time?
No, that would have been hilarious.
Yeah, that would have been really funny.
No, but I actually liked him at the beginning.
It's kind of fun that he's got a couple of things in common with that guy. He's not like totally different.
He's very full of himself, and that's great.
Yeah, and he's full of himself, and he also for a really long time refuses to believe that the Turtles exist.
Yeah,
and he's kind of there's a little bit of that in the in
but the
that
problem
character.
is that they use him at the beginning, and he's great, and I'm really into this character, and then he just keeps doing the same thing over and over again. It's almost like they're playing the same joke, and he goes from being, hey, I like this, this could be this fleshed out guy, to, well, he's just kind of one-dimensional because he just has the same scene every time he's on screen.
And it's just a one-note kind of gag.
Yeah, and I felt like...
You can be comic relief, but there's got to be more to you than just that one joke. And
yeah, and Michelangelo was the exact same way.
I hate to agree with it. And what makes it worse is that Michelangelo got the most screen time and was kind of, in a lot of ways, the main turtle we were focusing on. No, really.
Well, he kept hogging the screen time from the other. I mean, the others had the interesting things going on, and then he always had to jump in with something. With, let's throw the punchline on the end of this scene. The rest of it was just kind of boring. I mean, all the good stuff was in the first 25 minutes, and I liked it. I liked some of those same elements throughout the film.
Yeah.
I mean, there are certain things that just didn't go
It's not
away.
like it was suddenly a different movie.
Yeah, it's not like that, but...
It just took a turn for the dull.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Exactly. And that's why I had hesitated saying that. It's like, it's not like I didn't like anything from that second half, but... All that stuff was...
I noticed you chuckled here and there.
Yeah.
There are funny things.
There are definitely funny things. And I loved the scene at the end with Michelangelo.
I kind of liked it too.
But it's just kind of everything in between there was let me fall asleep for 45 minutes. You know? So...
We'll go ahead and flip your sign.
This is really hard.
Yeah.
Because... I loved the first 25 minutes of it, and then I was bored. But then,
so on the whole, then.
But would I see it again? Yeah.
Really?
I probably... I wouldn't just, try to murder someone on their way to push the play button on the DVD player.
Okay.
So I'm going to say I'm feeling it, because I didn't expect to actually enjoy any part of it.
Well, just the fact that you flipped a green sign is huge praise from you.
Yeah.
Because you didn't expect to even... you didn't want to go.
No, I was dreading this
I mean, you didn't even want to go. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I was preparing myself for this, to have a horrible time. And then I didn't, and I was surprised, and then I was probably more disappointed because I didn't like the second half. So...
For the record, I didn't, tie her up and throw her in the car and, make her go.
No, Jason did that.
I did... I mean, you didn't have to go.
No,
but I was really hoping that.
Well, it was. I had to see it. I knew I was.
Were
gonna
you
see
like
it
me?
at
I was
some
just too
point.
curious.
Yeah.
Regardless.
Yeah. So I was gonna see it, but it was just a matter of how much I really wanted to.
All right. Well. Oh boy, was this disappointing. And again, I fully expected to be disappointed a couple of months ago, and then I kept seeing commercials, and things were kind of piquing my interest, and there would be little jokes here and there when I would be like, well, that sounds very Turtles, and that seems kind of fun, and maybe it's just a lighthearted romp, and I don't need it to be a masterpiece as Ninja Turtles, you know what I mean?
Exactly,
It doesn't, it can be just a big fun kind of fluff piece, and be, it can be silly, and also the stuff you were talking about with the parts where the plot doesn't make sense, and you got kind of weird leaps in logic and stuff. I can forgive all that if I was having more of a fun time, especially because of what it is. Mm-hmm. This movie made me feel like I wish I'd never seen another superhero movie ever. I think I would have liked it more if this wasn't the thing I do, because... Oh boy, was this typical. This is incredibly typical. Mm-hmm. Having just seen it, and I always like to stipulate that I always like to preface this kind of a statement with, I've seen it one time and this is my guttural immediate reaction. This is the most typical superhero movie I've seen since Green Lantern.
Wow.
It just is the Turtles movie you would expect to see in some ways before we made pretty sophisticated movies in this vein, and yet it wants to be those in places, and that's one of the things that's so frustrating about it, is that it just has a really lackluster villain plot. Mm-hmm. And frankly, there are things about the Turtles' origin that I think are really lackluster compared to the original. There's a thing with Splinter I don't care for, that I just think makes it a lot less interesting than it's ever been before. I hate that, because I liked his characterization quite a bit.
Yeah.
There's not enough there, but I felt like that with pretty much everything. Yeah. And I guess I shouldn't be surprised, because that's the big thing, it being a Michael Bay produced film. I know he didn't direct it, but a lot of people have told me, because I haven't gone out of my way to seek out a lot of Michael Bay movies, a lot of people have told me that anything his house makes, even if he doesn't direct it, they often have the same kind of feel. a little surprised that the tone wasn't too much of that. There's not a whole lot of stuff in here where I'm like, oh man, I sure wish kids weren't here. Was surprised by that. Appreciated that. There's a couple little things, whatever, piddly things where I was like, I don't need that. There's like one moment of potty humor. I was like, I don't need that. But it did have the thing of nobody gets enough screen time, and of there's a whole lot of just this. This is here because it's serviceable. Superhero movies have X, Y, and Z, and so we plug in for X, Y, and Z, and then, like, it's one of those movies that is far too aware of the fact that it is, like, the 200th superhero film. Yeah. If that makes any sense at all. Yeah. Where it's just, like, we don't spend enough time being in awe of how odd and unusual this stuff is. I mean, there's a little bit of that kind of thing, but there's for some of the characters involved, but for the audience, it's very been here, done this already. Yeah. It's like we've got to throw in a evil corporate mastermind plot because that's what we do with superhero movies these days. It's timely. It's very now to have your big bad guy be a evil corporate CEO. So that kind of thing is thrown in here. Yeah. And again, I'm not knocking it because it did that. Yeah. You can do that again. It's just I didn't think there was anything to it. And Shredder, there's nothing to him. There's nothing, and that's
not exaggeration.
There's nothing there, and it's really sad. Yeah.
I mean, he's dressed up like the Silver Samurai.
Yeah,
and I that's feel all you get of him the entire movie.
And I feel like the only reason they went with a giant mech. And by the way, I will say this. I should say some positives. There were a lot of things I liked. But wrapped in a really dull out exterior, you know, just like really uninspired. The whole thing altogether. It's really sad. And I always say this with a thing like this. It would have been easier if the whole thing just didn't work. It would be so much easier if it was just awful. Yeah. But it's not just awful. I think I'm more disappointed because of what I liked, you know?
And that's exactly where I am, where I wouldn't be so depressed after watching this movie if I hadn't liked the first half of it.
Yeah. I will say that the Shredder mech suit thing, it's not really a mech suit. It's more like an Iron Man suit. But like the Shredder suit, it works better than I thought it would. I actually kind of like what it looks like in the film. You make action figures of it and stuff; it looks kind of bad. But like being there and seeing it on screen, that actually worked for me. And part of the reason it worked was because I don't see a regular size man, no matter how good he is at martial arts, taking on 4 6.5 foot tall turtles. Yeah. And I think he had to be Super Shredder big in order to fight the turtles.
No, especially as big as they are, right? What I thought was really funny was that the turtles were able to bash apart concrete. But then
we still have fights with foot soldiers? Yeah. Well, but they don't last very long.
No, but then you get the mech suit that's apparently just, I don't know, what is it made out of? Adamantium?
It must be.
Because they can't.
And that's one of the things that I was a little bit disappointed with. I had gotten used to the idea of, okay, this movie's going to have enormous turtles, and they're going to be really beefy, and that's just what they're going to look like, and I will say it was kind of fun that they sort of made a joke out of somehow or rather. I do kind of enjoy quirky, silly stuff like this where there's no real explanation. If we're playing it enough for comedy and it's a kind of what's the word I'm looking for? And it's kind of a silly kind of universe. I can go with this. They're really huge, and yet they're stealthy anyway. Yeah. And I was kind of okay with some of that. On the other hand, I didn't feel like there was enough of a reason for them to be as big as they were. I felt like the whole movie would have worked better if they were just the size we were used to. And so, again, as I always say, it doesn't have to be just like the comics or just like other source material, but did you not feel like they were just enormous because, we like doing that with the Transformers thing? It's like, for some reason, big is better, and like, it makes for more fun action scenes if you have really big noise. You know what I mean? Like, they like that.
And we've got to break these parapets when we land on rooftops.
Yeah, and it's like, you're not the Tick, you know? But did you also feel like it was kind of that way just because it's never been done that way? Like, it's just that, and I felt like that about a lot of things in this, where it was just like, okay, it's here because it's new and different. Surprised.
But it's new and different in the way that it's not fresh. and exciting and new and different.
I didn't feel that way either. I was surprised by Megan Fox's performance. I'm not saying it was a great performance. I also don't think past a certain point she had all that much to work with. But like toward the beginning, I found her sympathetic. I was interested. I liked how much of a go-getter she was. I enjoyed that she put her job on the line for her ambition, and all of that. Like I was impressed actually. And like I don't love Megan Fox as an actress, but like I thought that she was delivering what was on the page okay, and I thought what was on the page was okay.
Yeah. Well, and I've never been a huge April O'Neil fan anyway.
But if she's going to be so much of your focal point, then it's got to be good.
I liked how spunky she was,
and I feel like we kind of lost her in the shuffle, and I feel like we lost everybody.
Well, she kind of went to the background because it sort of became the Turtles movie after they showed.
Well, maybe kind of, but I think my biggest complaint is there comes a point where it's not anybody's movie in my head, where I just feel like I'm kind of distanced from everything, and it's more just here's a bunch of stuff going on. But then I was never all that enthralled with the action either. I just don't think Ninja Turtles is very much fun if they can step on foot soldiers and win.
Yeah.
I mean, I know in the cartoon show they could kind of punch foot soldiers in the face and they blew up, but I'm talking like live action Turtles. You know, you had all those scenes in the '90 movie where they're fighting the foot soldiers, and they're fighting like a whole bunch of them at once.
Yeah, but they could be overwhelmed.
They could be overwhelmed and stuff, and like you got to see a lot of cool choreography. I feel like in this movie it didn't matter that they were ninjas.
Yeah.
Now, I think there's a lot of oversimplification. I feel like they think that the ninja thing matters because they're stealthy and they can disappear. But then once they get into fights, the fact that they're ninjas doesn't matter. And even when they go up against the Shredder, he's got this like robotic suit thing where he's shooting a lot of projectiles. So much of this was turtles versus bullets or turtles versus throwing swords, and there wasn't a lot of really fun hand-to-hand, which is what you kind of want with Ninja Turtles. But then how could there be because of what they look like? I really couldn't get my head around big, huge, giant, bulky turtles. And I was hoping that it would sell me on it, and it just didn't. And I feel like I would feel the same way even if it was the first Turtles thing I had ever seen. I still feel like that still wouldn't have worked. I don't know, man. Yeah, at the end of the day, I'm definitely not feeling it. And was hoping to. It's so weird how we almost flipped on this because, and obviously you're not in love with it, but but
I'd see it again.
It's so weird how we flipped on it because after seeing a couple of previews, I was like, let's give it a chance. I think it might be okay, and you were just like, whatever happens, this is not going to be any good. I don't think. Okay, let's talk about some other random things here and there. Could we not have maybe had one more scene with Whoopi Goldberg?
Yeah.
It was neat that she was there, and I know she campaigned to be in the movie, and that she may have been kind of a last-minute addition, but, like, once she's gone, it's really sad not to have her back.
All of her scenes were fun.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just that actress or what, but it was... I wanted her to come back, yeah.
The Turtles don't get enough characterization, and I know that's an easy thing to throw at it. You could have said the same thing to a degree with the original movies, and critics did say that. Critics said, "Oh, the Turtles are interchangeable," and they felt that way back then to a lot of critics that had never seen Ninja Turtles before. But like, I felt like a lot of that back then was critics, like Roger Ebert said that, and I feel like a lot of that back then was critics like projecting their irritation for the Turtles fever onto that movie, because I felt like Leonardo and Raphael were quite developed for what it was.
Yeah.
In this, it's kind of just, they have their standard major character trait. Michelangelo's funny, Raphael's a hothead, Leonardo is the leader, which is, by the way, not really a character trait. I mean, having leadership skills is, but it's more, his title is his character trait, and then Donatello is good with computers. There is nothing more to them in this than that. Yeah, and that's really sad, because there are moments where, again, I see a little cool kind of, you know, flash of personality, and then at the end of it I realized that all those cool flashes of personality were just token things, so that, like, I kind of felt, maybe I'm wrong about this, I know this movie was rewritten a number of times, and one of the things that was rewritten was, let's make sure that we make a big deal out of the Turtles aren't aliens. There's like one line in the film about how the ooze may have come from space. And that's what I think it was supposed to be even in the earliest drafts, but somebody got a hold of that and found out about that and said, oh no, the Turtles were from space, and everybody freaked out. And so there were rewrites to fix that. Now maybe in a really early draft they were actually from space, I don't know. But what I'm saying is, there were things like that where you could tell we're responding to criticism before the movie comes out. And I really felt like one of those things might have been, people are afraid that the Turtles aren't going to have their personalities and aren't going to be funny enough. So there might have been a lot of, let's add more comedy to this scene, let's add more. I really felt a lot like that throughout it, where it was like we really ramped up the comedy. Yeah. And some of it works.
That didn't come naturally from wherever the writer was pulling, but it was jammed in there.
Well, because other than the comedy, they're non-entities.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel that way with the original films.
Yeah.
And you really don't want that. And I mean, I hate to compare them, but it's impossible not to.
Yeah.
And the film is asking you to, because there are definitely scenes that are huge homages.
Yeah.
There's one place in particular that you and I both looked at each other and said, you shouldn't steal that.
Yeah. Yeah. But...
some of the nods to the cartoon show I was cool with.
Yeah.
I mean, there were a couple of fun lines that I didn't feel like were too shoehorned in. Were kind of fun. I don't know, what else did you want to talk about?
This is small, but what I was curious about was how the swords kept coming back into the Shredder costume so he could shoot him again.
Magnetism. Well, I felt like there was, I wondered that too for a second. There was one shot where it seemed like they were making a pretty big deal out of it's magnetic, because there's one, if memory serves, there's one place where there's a blade in the wall, and it starts to shake like this, and then it shoots back out, and I think that was supposed to be the insert that told us, oh, the way he does that is with magnetics. I had no problem with that after that shot.
Okay, well, it didn't ruin it for me. It was just kind of funny because I don't know how that would work.
Well, it seems like if you did that, you would potentially bring in a bunch of stuff you wouldn't want. Like, I could see having a magnetic field built into your suit like that. Yeah. But I don't know.
And they'd come in the exact right way and that fast, and I don't know. It just... It was kind of silly, but
it's in some ways it's a live action cartoon. I can live with stuff like that, but
definitely. It's just weird. It's just weird when that kind of thing is in live action. It makes you question it in a way you wouldn't if it were animated.
Okay, if we're going to talk about that kind of thing, just live action versus anime. How did you feel about CG turtles in a live action film? That was one of my big reservations early on. I was like, I really don't want badly integrated CG turtles, because the original live action costumes looked so good and it kind of worked.
Yeah.
How'd you feel about it?
I think that didn't bug me so much as just the initial design of the turtles anyway. It didn't pull me out. I was fine with the integration, and it was okay. The fact that they weren't animatronic wasn't a problem for me.
Yeah, it doesn't. They don't have to be that. I did feel like there were places where it's not that it was badly integrated, and I mean I felt this way sometimes with Transformers also. It's that when you had two or more CG creatures fighting each other, I felt like I was watching a computer animated movie at that point, and then had to kind of get used to humans again when I saw them, and I have this sometimes, and I know I'm kind of out on my own boat sometimes with that kind of thing. It doesn't. I think people have been conditioned to accept it. I still have not accepted it. There was a scene where Shredder's fighting somebody, and it's in an arena type setting the way they've shot it, and I feel like I'm watching Tekken.
Okay. Yeah, see, and I just don't have that.
But
I kind of often have the opposite thing of you, where if something's badly, even if something is really poorly integrated, a lot of times I'll miss it.
Yeah.
So
no, that's cool. Well, I kind of wish I had that, because then I could enjoy things more. Yeah. Anyway, real quick, anything else you wanted to bring up?
No.
I
think that covers it.
I feel like this is a thing that could have a really good sequel. I don't know that it will, certainly. I'd love to be optimistic. I mean, there is a part, I don't like the designs either, and I don't like the initial background and stuff, so I mean, like, I think it could move forward, and I could be made to really appreciate it, or to really like it, because as I said a minute ago, it's mostly just really, really typical, and I was bored. There's really no reason that it couldn't have been.
I think
a lot more interesting.
I don't think you can get me to like the designs of the turtles.
Yeah.
But if you put them in an interesting film, I won't care.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Exactly. So I mean, like, we can go forward from here, but I kind of wish that it wouldn't make money and they would go back to the drawing board again, just because I think something a lot better could be made.
Yeah. Yeah.
I liked stuff about it, but ultimately,
well, the thing is
it's just really
turtles,
lackluster.
The great thing about them is that you can go super campy with them, or you can go super dark and edgy and serious. Both ways work.
That's what's so great. I think that's a lot of why they've endured.
Yeah.
It's a lot of why they stuck around.
Yeah. So you can have different versions, and they're all valid, and they all have something to bring to the table.
Yeah.
But the trick is to tell interesting stories and make us care about them, about this particular version that you want to set forth.
Yeah.
And I just don't think this movie did that.
Well, if you saw the film, leave a comment. Let us know what you thought about it, and we will be back with you again, Vince and I, with another new movie review for you next week. We're going to try to do a spoiler cast on this one sometime next week, so look forward to that as well. And in the meantime, I am Captain Logan.
And I'm Sarah.
Thanks for watching.